I want to turn to now the interview that Donald Trump did with Time magazine. President Biden actually calls this interview a mandatory read, and here's likely why. This is how the reporter, Eric Cortellessa, described his takeaways from his discussions with Trump. Quote, "What emerged in 2 interviews with Trump and conversations with more than a dozen of his oldest advisors and confidants were the outlines of an imperial presidency that would reshape America and its role in the world. To carry out a deportation operation designed to remove more than 11 million people from the country," Trump told me. "He would be willing to build migrant detention camps and deploy the U.S. military both at the border and inland. He would let red states monitor women's pregnancies and prosecute those who violate abortion bans. He would
monitor women's pregnancies."
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Think about that. He would, at his personal discretion, withhold funds appropriated by Congress, according to top advisors. He would be willing to fire a U.S. attorney who doesn't carry out his order to prosecute someone, breaking with the tradition of independent law enforcement that dates from America's founding. He is weighing pardons for every one of his supporters accused of attacking the U.S. Capitol.
People who beat up police officers.
Criminals. On January 6, 2021, more than 800 of whom have pleaded guilty or have been convicted by a jury. He might not come to the aid of an attacked ally in Europe or Asia if he felt that country wasn't paying enough for its own defense. He would gut the U.S. civil service, deploy the National Guard to American cities as he sees fit, close the White House Pandemic Preparedness Office, and staff his administration with acolytes who back his false assertion that the 2020 election was stolen.
Jen Palmieri, that summarizes what the stakes of this election are.
More ruthless, more efficient, taking away more rights, more cruel. You know, he understands now what he didn't before about who he said he wasn't going to be as nice this time around, right? He was going to fire people right away if they weren't implementing what he wanted to do. And then on a day that in Florida, that the 6-week abortion ban takes effect, he then goes to Michigan and talks about how it took a great deal of wisdom for the Supreme Court justices, calls them out by name, great deal of courage, great deal of wisdom to overturn Roe v. Wade, even as he's trying to make it appear as if he has some kind of other, some kind of different view about abortion now. And he talked about how people were very happy. People were very happy that Roe v. Wade got overturned on the day that, imagine what's going to happen in Florida now as doctors and women try to navigate a 6-week abortion ban.
Summarize the stakes of the election.
Is it possible?
We don't even have the time. For months now, we have been talking about Project 2025, and the Trump campaign folks have kind of, been giving it a long arm, stiffening back and saying, no, we have our own stuff that we are working on. Project 2025 is actually not what the Trump policies would or will be, and it is not true. Chris Acevedo, all these folks have said that. What Donald Trump said in the Time magazine interview and what he's been saying out there in the campaign trail is exactly what is in the Project 2025 playbook. There are 4 pillars in the playbook, okay? One of the pillars is about a personnel database where folks can literally make their own profile so that the Trump folks can go through and take a look at who they are and the people who are advising the 2025 project. The other pillar is a presidential administration academy. Well, after they've deemed that you were one of our potential people that we would give a job to in the government, we're going to train you up on these are the things that you can do and how to subvert the system to really address and get done what a President Trump would want to do. And then the 4th pillar is the playbook. They literally write it out. And so this is not hyperbole. Donald Trump is not just saying, random things. This is the playbook. This is the plan. And folks should be, this is the reality. This is it.
Symone Sanders Townsend, thank you very much. We'll be watching The Weekend, Saturday and Sunday mornings beginning at 8 a.m. right here on MSNBC. Love it.